where we get real about football. And now to your hosts, Mike Pagano and Paul Helmers.
What's going on, guys? This is Mike Pagano. I'm back with Paul Helmers, and this is MVP News. What is going on, Paul?
It's a beautiful Wednesday. There's so much going on. The NFL is going crazy today. There's roster moves. There's been trades this week. There's injuries. There's good games coming up. There's so much to talk about.
I mean, we are officially right at that halfway mark. Week 8 is coming up, and we're about to be really rolling into the best part of the NFL season, the final stretch where things start getting heated. We get close games in the cold and snow and today is such a great day to do this podcast. I'm extremely excited. We've got so much news for you guys. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and dive right into a bunch of the news before we get to the main topics that we're going to talk about. We've got a bunch of injury updates for you guys before we really get going into things. First and foremost, I know I said I would update you. Marshawn Lynch, we originally said, was going to miss a couple weeks. Well, as of Monday, it looks like Lynch is going to be placed on the injury reserve for a core muscle injury. So sorry, Raiders, you just lost him. Paul, what's going on with Michel?
Sony Michel had his MRI on Monday. It looks like he avoided major damage. So no structural damage to his knee. He will be back at some point this season. But right now, Schefter has reported that he will be considered week to week through this stage, as the Patriots have yet to confirm either the severity of his injury or the acknowledgement that he'll miss next Monday's game against the Bills in typical Bill Belichick fashion.
Yeah, he wants teams to know that if my player is decent and not on IR, you're going to have to game plan for him. Although I think people are smart enough to know he's probably not going to be back right away.
Yeah, he's doubtful for this week, so probably not Monday, but you never know.
Yeah, Bill's not going to tell you anything. Now, we also have another one that's a little bit of a surprise. Bilal Powell, who's had a decent year this year. He's not been like last year. Last year, he did great things. That's why I put him on my fantasy. He really hasn't been able to shine as much because Corell has been, really doing some good things over there. But Corell's going to be getting a lot more snaps if you guys have him on your fantasy, because Powell is now on IR for a neck injury. Also, someone that may be going on the IR is Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson. He's expected to be placed on the IR. So just a bunch of stuff happening right now with injuries. And it's not just injuries getting people off the field. We've got something with Chad Kelly, right, Paul?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Irrelevant 2017 had some issues.
Yeah, so from what I'm reading is he was arrested. Was this last night?
I believe so. Last night for trespassing.
Yeah, so I guess he got drunk and stumbled into somebody's house and decided to sit on their couch and relax. All we know is he was arrested for trespassing. The actual charge is like suspicion of criminal trespassing. Regardless, it's trespassing. And after this happened, the Broncos were very fast to make a decision, especially because he was obviously under the influence when this happened. And John Elway came out, made a statement. He said, this was a decision that we made as an organization. So they have reviewed what's going on. He talked with the coach. They made a decision they even involved the Broncos president, Joe Ellis, and they agreed that releasing Chad was the right thing to do. Now, even though Chad is no longer part of the team because the Broncos have officially released him, they are offering to help him in any way that they can and support him in all the ways possible. So they are trying to do that. That's how the NFL teams are. It's a PR nightmare if they weren't supportive. So they're going to be doing that as well. Now, on the opposite side of injuries, we have someone coming back. So Vikings defensive end Everson Griffin is set to resume team activities today. After missing nearly a month as he battled a serious mental health related issue, as many people know. So that's one good thing to see him back on the field, getting things going and whatnot. So we got one more thing as far as personnel goes before I roll into something else, Paul. I know you've heard this on the rumor mill, and I'm not going to do my rumor mill song. We're going to cut that. But Peterson has been asking to get traded from the Cardinals.
That's Mr. Peterson to you.
The Honorable Mr. Peterson. No, so good old Patrick over there in Arizona has been making it very clear that he no longer wants to be there. which is really surprising. It's not surprising in the aspect of the team is really falling apart. But one thing that I've noticed about the Cardinals team when, over the years as a Seattle fan is those guys do have a love for their team. They're very, gung-ho for it. I mean, look at Fitzgerald. He's like, he wants to retire Cardinal. He wants to be there forever. But yeah, it looks like he wants to leave. But we have had a statement from head coach Steve Wilkes, and he said, we are not, and that's like capitalized, we are not trading him. So I guess it's going to come down to, who gets their way, the team or the player.
Right. And I mean, there are a couple teams who could probably use Patrick Peterson and would probably make a move for him at this point, for a run. But it looks like the Saints didn't have any movement there with some stuff we're going to bring up later. I did want to talk about one more thing about players and movement and mobility. Le'Veon Bell, who was supposed to report this week, that's what the reports had said during the Steelers bye week, did not report yet and is now reportedly not reporting until after the trade deadline, because if he reports before the trade deadline, the Steelers can trade him. If he reports after it, the Steelers cannot trade him.
That's really weird because I would think if they really wanted to, they can trade him. He doesn't need to be there to be traded. No,
he hasn't signed his tender yet.
Oh, so he can't be traded if he doesn't show up?
Right. So basically how this works, he's a free agent, but since he's been offered the franchise tag, he can't sign with another team. He's locked to the Steelers. But until he signs that tender, then he's technically not a Steeler. So he's locked in place, just waiting to come back and basically on his terms. If he shows up after the deadline and can't be traded, but he still has to show up before week 10 in order to be considered a full year participant. Otherwise, they can tag him again next year.
Here's one thing I want to bring up, and this was not planned at all, but you bringing that up makes me bring this up. I really hope when the collective bargaining agreement that is currently in place has, runs its course and it's time to create a new one, I really hope that this gets eliminated because this shouldn't be possible where you could show up at week 10 and that counts as a full season and you can hide out from the trade. Like, I know it's not going to happen often. It's very rare, but I feel like it's really, you got guys in Pittsburgh that are paying thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for their season tickets. You got fans, and I get what Le'Veon Bell's doing. We've had this discussion. This isn't about him right now. It's not about you. It's about the fans right now. And what I think is it's just terrible that the fans have to go through this. If my favorite player was doing this, he wouldn't be my favorite player anymore. So I just feel bad. I'm not going to waste too much time on this topic. Whatever. I'm getting tired of Lev Bell. Whatever, bro. You're going to end up on another team. The Steelers don't want your crap anymore. Connor looks good. Good luck being cancer in someone else's life.
Right, and the only teams who are going to pay him or going to be able to pay him are teams that he probably won't necessarily want to play for and won't be able to make runs like the Steelers do.
All right, so as far as personnel goes, that's it right there. But let's move into one more thing I want to talk about, news-related or headline-related, that I think is really interesting before we go into today's topics. So this isn't something that's like blowing up the headlines. You're probably not hearing about it that much on, your TV shows and whatnot, but I think it's interesting. So the Baltimore Ravens head coach, John Harbaugh, he's come out saying something in regards to the challenging rule. So he's been an advocate, for a lot of different rule changes. I believe he might even be on the rule committee. So he's coming out right now saying that you shouldn't have to win both challenges in order to get your challenge back. So where's this coming from? Why is he saying this? Against the New Orleans Saints, he had 2 early game challenges that he used. He lost one, he won one. This prevented him from being able to challenge anything for the rest of the game. So when talking about this, he said, and I quote, "We've talked about that rule. The rule should be changed." And he told this to the Ravens official website. You shouldn't have to win both challenges to get another challenge back. That's been talked about, and that's been just dismissed by the powers that be. Who knows why? Maybe they could explain it to you in some way that makes sense. But the other thing is, we never challenge unless we think we're going to win it clearly. Harbaugh was pretty much, he was upset because what happened is he did his challenges so early, he had to go 53 minutes of the game without a challenge. Now, obviously, I'm going to give my input on this in a second, but I'm speaking as an unbiased reader here. So what happened is he wanted to challenge a 1-yard run by Drew Brees later on in the game. It was 4th and 1, and it pretty much extended the drive, and it was a go-ahead touchdown for the Saints in the fourth quarter. And, I mean, was it the victory? Yes, technically, because it put them where they needed to be. They got to 24-23. At the same time, who knows how the game would have played out. So John says you have to at least get close to the line of scrimmage. And this is what he's saying about the play. It's not like you put the ball across the plane of a goal line. You can't put the ball across the plane of the first down marker. It's got to be forward progress. Absolutely, I would have challenged that. The other thing, you'd like for them to get it right the first time. That would be the ideal thing. So now that I've said this, I want to give my piece on this. I do see where he's coming from, but at the same time, what are you asking for, John? Are you asking for unlimited challenges? I mean, down the road, like, what is your goal here? There's 2 challenges. Like, the third is a lucky challenge. Like, you should go in with the mindset saying, I have 2. I don't have a third. So if you get the third because you were lucky enough to do 2 challenges correctly, then yeah. But what are you asking for? Just 3 challenges? So don't say you shouldn't have to win 2. Say it the way you really feel. You should have 3 challenges because that's all part of time management, clock management, challenge management. You have to know when to challenge it, when not to challenge it, and how to properly set that up. Now, granted, like I said, I do understand what he's saying. He is part of the rules committee, so this could get brought up, Paul. That's why I thought it was really interesting to point out. Plus, I know there's issues with challenges, and a lot of people have different feelings about what you can challenge, when you can challenge, and things like that. So I don't know what your input is on this, whether you agree with him or if you're thinking he's being a little butthurt about the loss.
As we're talking about it right now, in my head, I'm thinking, why should you be punished when the refs got a call wrong and you had to fix it for him? You know, so when you throw a challenge flag, basically what I got out of this, he's saying you shouldn't have to win both of them to get another one. So either one, you start with 3, or if you get one right, maybe you keep it.
Oh, for every single one you get right, you should be able to keep it because you were just fixing what happened wrong on the field.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking in my head right now. Like, why should a team be punished because, which is not a huge punishment, right? Like you lose a challenge, but I'm saying, why should you lose anything
feel you,
at
though,
all?
Because why should you,
right?
yeah, as you're saying, why should you be punished if the ref missed it? Because it might have been clear as day. Like, well, that's not my fault you got it wrong. And that's why he does end it saying, I'd like if they just get the things right the first time. That would be the ideal thing.
I feel like that's kind of a cheap jab at refs. Like he probably could have left that part out.
Yeah, Tomlin got fined for something similar to that.
Right. And Harbaugh could still get fined also. Who knows? But I just think I don't want to jab at the refs because it's hard to catch things full speed like that. I mean, being an NFL referee is a really tough job. I feel like they don't really get the credit they deserve for how well they really do. Of course, they make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. And you're watching things full speed, live action. Sometimes you have to look across the field to see things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can go on. So it's easy to miss stuff. You can't watch every single player at one time. Refs don't have 22 eyes that can all move in different directions.
I think the best solution, though, instead of starting to be more, giving out more challenges, I like what you said about if you win one, you keep one, right? I do like that. Like, it shouldn't be you have to win both. I get that. If you win one, you should get that challenge back, just like you keep your timeout. Because, it's the same thing. If I get to keep my timeout because obviously I was right, I should be able to keep my challenge. So I'm with that. Also, though, to take the power out of the coach's hands so they're not just throwing challenges, freely or whatnot, although they wouldn't really do that. But what I'm saying is maybe for 4th and 1s, like if it's a 4th down play, maybe that should be just like a touchdown. Like it's automatically should be reviewed. If it's something close, obviously. Because you got to understand a 4th and 1 is a game-changing play. Like that's a game changer.
It is, but I feel like I don't want to overanalyze the entire game like that, right? If a ref makes a call and a coach feels like it wasn't right and he challenges it, cool. But I don't want to slow down the game so much that we're challenging every single potential close call like that. Because then why does it have to be 4th down? What if it's 3rd down? I mean, that's the difference between a potential punt.
Okay, you're right. I don't mean that. Maybe I should word it this way. New York is already watching the games now, so New York watches all the games. They make calls from New York. They make challenges from New York. Maybe you should just have New York, give New York the ability to challenge more than just the final. Like if New York calls and says, hey, we're watching this, you got that wrong. Because right now New York can only step in the final 2 minutes and for touchdowns, right? That's the only time New York can step in.
I thought they had booth reviews, basically.
Yeah, and then if the coach challenges, New York is obviously involved. Like now, New York's in the ear of the ref. But what I'm saying is,
Right.
New York watches the games. How about if there's something that's really, really suspect and New York feels the ref gets it wrong? It shouldn't matter when in the game it is. If New York sees it and says, hey, that ref got that wrong, they should be able to interject. But whatever. I agree with you, though. I think the best thing here is win one, keep one.
Right. And I mean, keep the cap at 2, obviously. So if you get one wrong, then you lose that one, right? And you're stuck with 1. But if you still have that one left and you win it, then you keep it. And if you win it again, you keep it. You know, like basically for me, it would be unlimited challenges as long as you're right, but you only get 2 wrongs.
Yeah, as long as you know what you're doing.
Right.
Here's an interesting one. Let's make it even more fun. This one's just fun now. Let's take it down to just one challenge, but you keep it. So you got 1. So you can't just be free challenging. But if you know you're right, you do it, you get it, you keep going. You got another challenge. You do it, you keep going. You get another challenge.
I don't know. I think one wrong is too little.
That was just me being fun. But let's talk about the last piece of news and talk about challenging. So this is a different type of challenge right here. This is a challenge to be the greatest. So Odell Beckham Jr., even though we give him crap, we talk trash about him, we're going to give him his props when it's due. Okay, let's just be 100% honest. We are tough on the kid, but that's because he kind of makes it tough, on himself. But props when it's due. Odell Beckham Jr. became the fastest wide receiver on Monday night to reach 5,000 receiving yards since the 1970 merger. Beckham set the mark right now at 54 games, which is he took that from the Falcons receiver Julio Jones, who did it in 56 games. So OBJ is now in the history books, fastest receiver to reach 5,000 yards. And here's something I really want to point out. He could have blew this away if he had better QB play. What I mean by that is this season has not been a good season for him. If he started this season with a QB that can really light it up, he might have hit this mark at 52 games. So that's all I'm saying. But hey, good job, OBJ. Congratulations. And with that, let's kind of roll into the Monday Night Football recap because it did just happen. This is our first show since it. And I think we should talk about Monday night before we get on to today's topics.
Well, I watched the whole game. Well, most of the game. And the first thing I want to say, I personally have had a lot of negative thoughts about Odell Beckham's actions this season with his speaking out against Eli Manning in an interview, in a national TV interview, with his walking off the field early, with his headbutting the sideline fan again, which first off, I still don't condone the sideline acts, right? His headbutting and his walking off the field. I'm still not a fan of that stuff, but I totally understand now after watching that game why he would go out and publicly trash his quarterback. I've never seen that. Well, that's probably not true, but in recent memory, this is the worst game I've seen from a quarterback, and honestly from a coach for that matter too. I can't tell you, like, some of the decisions that were made. What are they doing? Eli Manning is a seasoned veteran. He's been in this league a really long time. And some of these decisions he was making, I have no clue what he's possibly thinking. Why he thinks that, like, for example, 4th and goal, Giants are down. They need a touchdown. They're trying to go for the touchdown. Eli takes a bootleg out to the outside. He's got Odell Beckham wide open right in front of him. And he doesn't throw him the ball. He decides instead that he's going to try and run this ball in with defenders nearby. Now, anyone who's ever watched either Manning ever play football knows that these guys aren't fast. He doesn't have jets to use. He's not 6'5" and 260 pounds. He's not a runner. So what's going through his head to not throw the 5-yard, or probably not even 5, the 3-yard pass instead of running the ball and then not scoring, turnover on downs? What's the point? And Pat Shurmur's on the sideline screaming, "What? Throw it to Odell." There's video footage of him saying that. I don't understand. And then to top it off, when the Giants are down 14 points, they score a touchdown, and you're thinking, "Oh man, this might be a game. They could do something here." And then he goes for 2. Why? What's the point? You're down 2 touchdowns. Kick your field goal. Try and get another touchdown. What are you doing?
Yeah, you just turned that into a 2-possession. I mean, you just created yourself to continue in a 2-possession game. You're down one possession. Oh no, I'm going to go for two because then maybe I can win on my next touchdown instead of, just tying it up. But now, oh wow, now you're down 8. And now you either need to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion on the next one, or you're going to need a touchdown and a field goal. It's mind-boggling.
So, okay. So then from there, on their last drive, where they have given up a field goal, an extra field goal now, which, so might I add, they did get the touchdown and the 2-point that they would have required to tie the game back up, but the Falcons had already kicked another field goal. So on this drive, where they have like the clock is ticking. They get on the goal line, and the commentators gave this decision to Eli that this is his fault, and I don't know if it is or not, but they get close to the end zone, and he chooses the quarterback sneak, doesn't get it. They quickly line up again. He does it again, and they still don't get it. What are you doing? You just wait. They don't have any timeouts. He wasted like 40 seconds off the clock that they could have used to, I don't know, get the ball back and kick a field goal or score a touchdown to win the game? Nope. So now they got 5 seconds left to get an onside kick and hopefully score. What are you doing? I just don't understand. I'm so disappointed and just angry from watching the Giants on Monday night. I don't know what to say about them.
Yeah, I mean, that shows evident because you're the number one person to criticize Odell if he steps out of line. And for you to come to me and say, Mike, I'll be honest with you. I understand what Odell Beckham is feeling. I was in shock when you said it. Because let's be honest, he has a reason. Now, I want to look at, the stats of the game. You kind of broke down everything you needed to break down. But I want to point something out as to why there's seriously an issue with this offense. Now, granted, Odell did his record. 5,000 yards. Heck, he even hit another record that you might not know about it. He broke a franchise record with his 23rd career 100-plus yard receiving game. So he passed former Giants wide receiver Amani Toomer, who had 22 100-plus yard receiving games. But even though Odell's getting his yards, and, Barkley's still doing what he was doing. Now, granted, he didn't get 100 yards, scrimmage yards to Monday. He got about 94, I believe. Offensively, they weren't able to do much. A lot of that came in the end. A lot of that came when the Atlanta defense was not really, they were more preventish than they were. Because let's be honest, in the first half of this game, so here, let me explain. So 13 points is the combined total of points between both teams in the first half. So entering this game, the Falcons were allowing 32 points per game, second most in the NFL. They allowed 3 total points to the Giants in the first half. So this Giants offense wasn't going against some stellar defense. This Giants offense should have been, with the talent they have, able to move the ball. And we know that there's coaching issues. We know that there's quarterback issues. There's something that the Giants need to figure out because it doesn't make any sense that they aren't able to move the ball, and it doesn't happen until the defense backs up. Because with this defense, the Falcons defense, you should have been scoring from the gate. But I'm not going to dive too much into this game because I think this problem is a lot bigger, and I think you kind of covered the game that well. I think we should go ahead and just jump into our very first topic, and our very first topic is this Giants team. This Giants team is now 1-6, and it seems like after Monday Night Football, something happened inside the office, the owner, the GM, the coach. Somebody sat down and said, this isn't it, and they decided that the best move is to move on from Eli. Oh, no. You think I'm about to say Manning, don't you? No, that's what I would do. But no, they decided to trade Eli Apple. So this doesn't sound like a big thing, whatever. Their defense was really solid a couple years ago. So far this season, they've been able to stay in games. Every game that they've played, they've been in pretty good, except for the Eagles kind of destroyed them. But they've been able to stay in games, so you don't normally just give up, your starters. Even if your starters aren't that great. I don't think Eli Apple's that great of a cornerback, but he's obviously in the starting position for a reason. So on Tuesday, the Giants traded Eli Apple to the Saints for a 4th-round pick in 2019 and a 7th-round pick in 2020. Now, I know I joked around saying that's the wrong Eli. I really do believe that they need to move, in a direction with Eli Manning. Obviously, they're not going to trade Eli Manning. So Eli Manning was actually, interviewed from Mike Francesca with WFAN on Tuesday. So this is before the rest of the, what happened today, and we'll get to that in a second. And they asked him, what do you see going on with this team? Do you think maybe, you'll be traded? And Eli says, I haven't thought about a trade scenario. He said, this organization is the only team I've ever played for and the only one I know. Only thing I know. I love the New York Giants. It's hard to imagine being with another organization. And let's be honest, guys, end of quote. This is Mike speaking. Let's be honest. A trade will not happen. Why? Because Eli is not trade worthy. 1, he's 37 years old. 2, he's been shell shocked. I'm talking, he's behind a bad O-line and been hit left and right. And 3, he really hasn't shown a reason to, like Brady could be traded at 45. He could be traded at 50. Because he shows us that, he's still got something in him. There's something in the tank still. Eli's not trade worthy. So when they do move on from Eli, it's not going to be from a trade. It's going to be a bench. And he's going to veteran or mentor the new guy if he doesn't just retire and leave. But this happens Tuesday. This doesn't say implosion. This doesn't say rebuild. It's a trade, whatever. They traded. And honestly, the Saints, I saw that myself coming a little bit. Paul mentioned it earlier that we thought Patrick Peterson would be the great fit for the Saints when that rumor came out. But this morning, we get the news bright and early that it wasn't just Eli Apple. So the New York Giants then traded Damon Snacks Harrison to the Lions for a 5th-round draft pick. What are you guys doing? Hey, we can't score on offense. We're having issues, points per game. We went over this a couple weeks ago, right, Paul? What they were at like 16 or 17 points per game or something, or 20, I don't know, but it was really low. Their defense isn't stopping people. Let's trade away 2 starters. One that's a run stuffer and one that's stopping the pass. Let's just get rid of them. What's going on?
Well, it seems like with a 1-6 start, they have now given up on their season, which makes sense. They've looked like crap all season, so it doesn't seem like there's anything to salvage right now. So they're going to hold on to their guys that are serious guys, like Landon Collins is still going to stay. Alec Ogletree is still going to be there. Saquon, obviously, their offense probably won't get touched much, but it's open season in New York. Call us and take whatever you want. But this also makes sense too. I mean, Dave Gettleman is a brand new GM there. This is his first year. So if they're not guys that he brought in and they're guys that he sees as might be a problem, I mean, it's people that he's going to get rid of. Or maybe he doesn't want to pay Snacks. I mean, Snacks was just an all-pro in 2016. So he's still a good player. Now, Eli Apple, just about a year ago, got Landon Collins called him a cancer and basically kind of trashed him publicly. They seem to have made up. There was some, public apology, and there's praise from Collins to him and everything. And I mean, he was supposed to have gotten a clean slate this year. And I guess that's like, this is your chance to not screw up. I don't know if maybe he did something wrong, if he asked for a trade or what. But so Eli Apple got moved. That's how it goes. But I don't know. That they seem to be trying to stockpile a couple draft picks, but none of them are really that high. They got a 4th and a 5th next year and a 7th the year after. So who knows? Maybe they trade someone else for a higher pick. But I see what I think is crazy. I really think Eli Manning's going to end up retired at the end of the season.
No, I agree with you. I think if he doesn't retire, they're going to bring someone on or give him a reason to just retire, or they're going to bench him. Like no matter what, I do not see Eli Manning being the quarterback of the Giants starting next year. I do not see him even starting as the quarterback in 2019.
Right, maybe even before the end of this year. They might, because they have this kid Kyle Lauletta that they drafted this year. Maybe he'll get some playing time this year. Now that they're 1-6, and they obviously have no hope for Eli Manning. So I would say, I would say play this Kyle Lauletta kid. Play him this week. Throw him in the mix.
You ready to throw him in right away, huh?
I mean, it's kind of unfair to the kid because then he has to battle through all the problems that they have other than Eli Manning already. But he also has some pretty nice weapons to start to build kind of a rapport with and make sure he knows, look, there's no pressure. There's no pressure at all. We want to see you play. We want to see you do well, obviously, but we're 1-6. There's no pressure here.
Get your feet wet now. Get the jitters out now. Get your mistakes out now. So next year you can run with it.
Exactly.
Throw your pick sixes now, not next year. You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, yeah, he might take some hits this year. Obviously, he's going to probably take some hits this year if he goes in
behind
there.
that O-line. Yeah.
Like, just get in there. We'll game plan. We'll do our best. Impress us, right? That's it.
Yeah,
and then move forward. Well, and then, I mean, and last year they had this idea, right, when they benched Eli for the half, but they played Geno Smith. Like the problem was never with benching. This is the thing that gets me. People want to like crush the Giants fan base and the Giants media because they're mad at the Giants for benching Eli Manning last year. They're not mad because he got benched. They're mad because he got benched for Geno Smith. We already know what Geno Smith is. If you're going to bench him for the young kid you got. Bench him for Davis Webb. Why Geno? Why'd you start Geno? We watched him play for the Jets for how many years?
Geno has something about him where people have hope that he can be something he's not. And I fell for it very early in his career. I really had hope for him. And I saw him doing, what he did with the Jets. And I'm like, no. He's going to turn it around. And I think that he does that. Like there's something he looks like he physically he's got the height. He throws some good balls and you're just like, oh, he could do this. And then he just makes the same mistakes and he makes the same terrible throws. And it really comes to light. Now, honestly, though, Eli Apple, you mentioned it. He's not that great of a guy, so I wanted to bring up some things. Let's be honest about Eli Apple. So he's been in the league since 2016. He has one interception since then. Now, okay, that's not a big deal, right? What's he doing pass defense-wise? He only has 20 pass defense in his career. 7 in year 1, 8 in year 2, and so far 5 this year. And, he has 41 tackles in each of his first 2 years with 20 so far this year. So he's tackling. I'll give him that. But just to give you guys an understanding in case you don't know much about passes defended, right? This stat could really work 2 different ways. You could be like Richard Sherman, and you don't have a high passes defended number because people don't throw it to you. Or you can have a low passes defended number because you aren't that good. Because even though the passes come that way, you just don't you don't stop anything, you don't do anything. So I'm gonna give you an idea. Shaquille Griffin, he came in the league 2017. The reason I pick him is because I know him. I know the Seattle roster better than any other roster I know in the NFL. In 2017 alone, he had 15 passes defended. That's pretty good. To be able to stop that many passes. Apple has 1 whole year extra in his career and only has 20 passes defended in his career. I'm just saying 2017, he has 15 passes defended. So my point is, he's not picking the ball off. He doesn't really have many passes defended. He gets 41 tackles in a year. He's not really an impact player back there. Now, Snacks, on the other hand, Snacks is a different kind of breed as well. I think he's going to be a great fit for the Lions because the kind of football Snacks plays. So he is 29, unlike Eli Apple, who is 23. So Eli does have a bigger future or longer future. I'm not going to say bigger. The Saints can try and get something out of him. Obviously, they see something in him enough to send a 4th rounder and a 7th rounder that way to get him. And they might be able to mold him into something. So I'm not saying that they won't. But Snacks, 29 years old, he's heading over to a Lions team that is ranked 30th in defense for run defense, right? They're allowing 139.3 yards per game. Snacks his specialty is run defense. That's what he does. Now, Detroit in the next couple weeks, they're going to be facing off against all top 10 rushing offenses. Seattle Seahawks coming up this week. We've been blowing out we've been doing our thing on the run game. They're playing Chicago Bears in week 10, the Carolina Panthers in week 11. These different run offenses that they're going against, and they rank 30th. So what they did is they brought Snacks in because, let's be honest, Snacks is, the last 2 years alone, he's had 51 and 55 solo tackles, and he's already got 15 so far this year. And that's a guy that's playing on the line in the center. This isn't a cornerback out there, hitting guys or a linebacker. He's usually playing that goalie, going head to head with a tackle or a guard, depending on where he's lined up. So to get 55 tackles, 51 tackles, that's not bad at all. That means he's in there getting those tackles. And I think Snacks is going to make a great addition to the Detroit team, which Paul and me have been talking about. Very sneaky good. And this could really help them to do some more damage and really handle some business.
Oh yeah, they're in a great position with in that division right now. They're, I think, a half game behind the Packers.
This division is completely up for grabs. And really, I mean, they could win this division. The Bears are right now favorite to win the division on half the people think the Bears, half the people think the Packers, because Aaron Rodgers always gives them a chance. But I'm actually one of those people that are out there saying, hey, watch out for these Lions. Stafford's still playing and, really good. Golden Tate, I love them. They've got some talent on defense now. And their run game, Johnson, I like him. Not
just Kerryon Johnson, but also LeGarrette Blount to go get those hard-earned, like, short yardage plays, your 3rd and 1s, your 4th and 1s, your goal lines.
And he brings the veteran leadership as well.
Oh yeah, and he brings the Patriot background where he knows Matt Patricia and he buys into his system, and and not to mention, I've watched LeGarrette Blount play for a couple years now, and he never stops churning and moving and pushing, and just, he's so huge, he's so strong, and he could have 3 guys on him and he's still leaning and pushing and driving and giving everything he has to get forward for a yard. That, like, he is an ideal short yardage back. Ideal. I really like LeGarrette Blount. But just to clarify on these standings, actually the Lions and the Bears are tied at 3-3. They're both a half game behind the Packers, who are 3-2-1, and the Vikings are in first at 4-2-1.
Oh, I don't know why I said I'm sorry. I don't know why I said the Bears. I meant to say the Vikings are the favorite. For some reason, the Bears were in my mind at the time because we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, completely jacked that up, guys. Yes, the Vikings are the favorite and the Packers. So they're the 2 favorites. It goes back and forth between people talking about the 2 teams. Yeah, the Bears are not the favorite, except for with Bears fans. Obviously, they are. So thank you, Paul, for correcting me on that. I don't know where my mind was at thinking of the Bears. Obviously, because I was thinking about some other stuff, but no, definitely. So that's not the only trade business that we've been having, though. There's been some other trades, guys, and some other teams going through some other stuff and doing some things. We mentioned earlier, Marshawn Lynch getting placed on the IR and that not being good for Raiders fans. Well, we've got another thing coming out of Oakland today, or actually yesterday, I should say. So Monday, I believe, is when it actually happened. Was it Monday?
Yeah, Monday it was released.
Yeah, so Monday, the Dallas Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper. They went and got him for a 1st-round draft pick. Now, this is not new, the fact that Amari Cooper was being sent out. This is something we've all kind of heard about and we've all rumored about, where will he go? And honestly, the Cowboys were one of the teams that, people thought about. Here's the thing. I had mixed emotions about it when it first happened, but I've got my mind in the right place now. And what I mean by that is, at first I said that's way too high of a pick. I don't know about you, Paul. But once I
like it. I think it's great.
Yeah, once I saw who else was going for him and what they were offering, it perfectly makes sense. So the other teams that were interested were the Jets, the Colts, and then most importantly, the Redskins and the Eagles. And it was rumored that the Redskins and the Eagles both were talking about offering a 2. You got to go and get him then. If your competition in your division is offering a 2, not only are you throwing a 1 out there to better your team, you're throwing a 1 out there to prevent your rival from getting them. Like, I'll tell you right now, if there's a player out there that can completely dominate us or make us better, and the Rams are interested in him, I want Schneider to go out there and get it. I don't want the Rams to get him. So this is a perfectly smart move. Garrett was interviewed, and Garrett pretty much said that's what a player like him costs you. And a lot of people were going crazy, but I'm going to give you guys a quote from Jason Garrett, and then I'll let Paul kind of give his point on it. But Jason Garrett was interviewed, and he said, look, we just feel like he's really a good player. He was a top 5 pick coming out of Alabama a few years ago. He said, by all accounts, from everybody we know at Alabama, he's one of the best players that they've ever had. One of the best people they've ever had. He went to Oakland. He's very productive early in his career. and then go down a little bit because he obviously is going to say a lot of things that we already been saying. But he's 24 years old, has a bright future, and goes about it the right way. And it feels like he's a fit for our culture and our team. The reason why I think this quote is highly interesting and important is because the reason why Dez Bryant left wasn't just or got cut is not just because of his production, but I really believed that once they brought in Dak and they brought in Zeke, they were aiming for a new culture in Dallas, and Dez was not part of that culture. Amari Cooper is the definition of a non-diva wide receiver. He's just like AJ Green, and obviously not production-wise, but he's the quiet, humble, no ego, just go out there, get it done kind of guy.
Yeah, no, so I think this move was really smart for both teams. So we've heard a lot kind of on both sides, people killing Gruden because he's trading all their players away, or people killing the Cowboys because they gave up a first-round pick. I just want to give a quick background. Amari Cooper was drafted 4th overall in 2015. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler already at this point in his career. And like you said, he's 24. He's only 6 months older than the Falcons rookie, potentially even rookie of the year, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but also, so yeah, Calvin Ridley. Let's look at this. OBJ is 25. How many teams will give up a first rounder right now for OBJ?
I'm sure there are some. I mean, he's a little different situation, but what I'm saying is, as far as age goes, I'm saying like he's 24. He's 6 months older than other rookies. So essentially, the Cowboys used a first-round draft pick on a draft pick. I mean, he's so young, he basically is a draft pick right now. But not only that, they're not gambling on a college guy. They know what they're getting. So I really like the move for the Cowboys because they're desperate for receivers. Amari Cooper has shown production. And just because hasn't been that good this year, a lot of things for the Raiders haven't been that good this year. So I don't think it's a bad move for the Cowboys. And as far as the Raiders go, he hasn't been producing this year. He's not a Gruden draft pick. And if he's not producing for Gruden and Gruden's not seeing what he wants to see out of him, he's got to rebuild anyway. They're 1-6 too. They have to move. They have to move forward.
Yeah, something's going on in that Raiders locker room, and I think it's bigger than just that. I think there's a mental thing going on because a lot of players aren't playing up to who they were and who they are. The team altogether, we expected so much more from them, and they're just not getting it. Now, Chris Carter, who knows Amari Cooper really well. He's known him since high school. He's mentored him. He's participated in training with him. And he even said that something's not right with the way that he's going about things right now. Like Cooper's just out of it. He's not motivated. There's a hit on his morale. But before we get into the Raiders, though, I do want to touch on the Cowboys for 2 seconds, and then we can go full blown on the Raiders. So with the Cowboys, I think another interesting point here, there's two. The first of which is, this is definitely the best receiver that Dak is going to throw to ever. Or not going to, but has. Dez, he never got Dez in his prime. It's arguable, if that, whatever. But he's never thrown to a receiver like this. So the big question right now, and you're hearing this from some people, is Dak the future? You and me discussed this on a couple shows. We had Okoye Media on the show. We had Gary Myers on the show. Like, this is a question we've all been asking. Is Dak the future? We're at the end of his contract. Now, if you guys remember back on the Okoye interview episode, we talked about this. Will the Cowboys reach out there and look for a new one, or are they going to sign him? Because guess what? This year's over. It's going to be big money time. Big money time. And if they put that money into Dak and Dak's not it, they're screwed. So what is the way you find out? Well, you bring that great receiver in. He's already got the line. He's already got the running back. His defense is actually looking really good this year. Like, they have all the pieces. So right now we're going to find out if it's the coaching or the quarterback, because that's what we've been saying. Is it the coaching or the quarterback for why this team's not producing? If this guy shows up and they work good together, Dak and Amari, then we know the problem is the coaching. If they don't work together well, then we can probably say, this QB is maybe not him. This QB is maybe not it. Now, That's what I'm thinking. Is another reason why this is a really good move, because now we're gonna get to really evaluate Dak, because that's all you keep hearing about when you go to a Cowboys fan and you say, "Hey, look, Dak's not doing this. Dak looks like this." They immediately jump to who's he throwing to. Look at all the drop passes. Although you did bring up an interesting stat with Amari. What was that, Paul?
Which stat was that? Are you talking about the drop numbers?
Yeah.
So he has the highest percentage of drops out of the top 50 targeted wide receivers since he was drafted.
Yeah.
Which includes like Devontae Adams and some other people, which, by the way, this isn't like a high number or anything. It's like 8 point something percent was the number I saw. And I mean, that sounds like, wow, you don't want a guy to drop 8 out of every 100 targets, but 100 targets is like a year's worth of targets.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I am just saying, though, it is coincidental that one of the big problems that the Cowboys suffer right now is their players, their wide receivers do drop passes, so that could be an issue. But the last thing I wanted to mention about, who Amari Cooper is, just in case our listeners don't know, and maybe you guys are younger, maybe you guys don't pay attention to college, everybody knows who Julio Jones is. Both Julio and Amari Cooper played in Alabama, just to let you guys know. Right now, if you go to the record books for Alabama, team records, Amari Cooper owns the following records after Julio played there: career receptions, single season receptions, catching in one game, career receiving yards, single season receiving yards in one game, career touchdown catches, single season receiving touchdowns, and touchdowns in one game. Cooper owns all those over Julio Jones. He had 103 yards, 1,500 yards, 103 catches and 1,500 yards in his final season, 14 touchdowns. I think he maybe actually had a little bit more. But the guy, don't let the last 2 years fool you. I really think that was more on the team and maybe even Carr. But I really think Cooper, if he's paired with the right quarterback, which I don't know if that's Dak, I think Cooper can get back to that top elite kind of level.
Oh, absolutely. I think we fall victim to recency bias too much, and I think that tends to be where a lot of criticism comes to people. But either way, moving on, more about the Raiders. So there's been some rumors about John Gruden having his own team of player evaluators coming in and doing all their evaluations, like completely separate from GM Reggie McKenzie and his team. And I think that really speaks to where the team is headed. We're not in a Reggie McKenzie era anymore in Oakland. We're back in a John Gruden era. And with that, if he has guys that he doesn't want, remember, he's on a 10-year contract. If he has guys that he doesn't want there, he's going to have the power to move them. And if these guys aren't producing for him, or they're not, pro team guys in the locker room or whatever, then you have to move on from them. And if you can net first-round draft picks for these people, then do it.
Yeah, I mean, with just between Amari Cooper and Mac, he now has 3 first-round draft picks, including his own, next year. So that's an amazing amount of draft picks to have in the first round.
Right, and 2 the following year.
Yeah, so he literally has the ability to get anybody he wants in the draft, because he can move up with those. He can do anything he wants with those. He could get a player off of another team, because there's not a lot of players on teams right now, unless you're the Bradys and the Wentzes and like certain locked in players that people wouldn't move on if you came to them like, yeah, I'll give you 2 first rounds, or I'll give you a first and a second. Like he has the ability to pretty much do anything as far as personnel goes. But I agree with you. I think this is a Gruden team, and I think he's honestly prepping for Vegas. I think he's getting ready for Vegas, and he's in the long haul, big mindset kind of thing right now.
Right. Now, the problem could be that he ends up losing the locker room before then, right? So there's a quote here from The Athletic. It says, and this is about the Amari Cooper trade. It says, the Mac trade was a real stiff jab. This was an anonymous Raiders player telling The Athletic. But the Cooper one was like a knockout punch, especially because we had just walked back in the door from the bye. We didn't want to believe it was coming, and coach said we weren't going to trade him. So if you're saying one thing to the team and then you're turning around and doing another, that can't be good.
It destroys trust, because think about it as a player. So you told us you weren't going to trade him, then you went and did it. So if you tell me you're not going to trade me, do I trust you?
And I think that's maybe something to work through. Maybe that's just a one-time incident. But with the Khalil Mack trade on top of that, right now, I think a lot of these guys need they might have to turn a lot of these guys over, which when you think about it, isn't really that crazy. I mean, people turn over 50% of the rosters in a year, right? That's normal. But the Raiders have the lowest percentage of their draft picks over the last. I think I closed. I closed it. But they have either way. They have the least amount of draft picks left on the roster over the past 4 years or so. It's not like they've been keeping their players anyway. So it's time to turn over. It's a new leaf. It's a new era. Marshawn Lynch is likely done, right? If he's out for this whole season, he's already 32, and he's already said he doesn't want to play in anywhere but Oakland. So when the Raiders move, he's gone anyway. So this might be the end of Marshawn Lynch. It's the end of Cooper. It's the end of Mack.
It might be the end of Carr.
I mean, it's possible. I have trouble seeing that one because Gruden's always spoken highly of Derek Carr. And I think Derek Carr is such like...
You know what, though? Here, let me add this. By all means, I think it would be stupid for them to get rid of Carr. 100%. I think Carr is a great talent. I don't think he's as bad as people think. But Gruden can speak high all he wants. Gruden also spoke extremely high of Amari Cooper. He spoke extremely high of Khalil Mack. But Carr is not his. Gruden is the new coach. And that's not his draft. He did not draft Carr. Now, he can like him from the booth when he called games, but I think I heard I think it was Shannon Sharp yesterday. Maybe it might have been someone else that said this, but you can like a player that you don't want to coach. And what they were Coward, I think, said this actually. I don't know, whatever. But, you can like a player that you don't want to coach. And what he meant by that is like, yeah, I might like you from the booth because I'm just watching you on the field. I like watching you play. But the way that I have to coach you is different. The way that you respond to coaching is different. The way that you are on, off the field, like so many different things. Maybe him and Carr don't, maybe there's something going on between them. Carr's not the same either. This whole locker room is having issues. And we know from past experience that coaches like their QB. They just like their guy that they brought in. Like, that's my guy. We've seen it so many times. Heck, we saw it with Kirk Cousins taking over for the Redskins back in whatever that was.
RG3.
Yeah, we saw it. We've seen it with a lot of different people, and we can go down that path. But one thing about Carr, though, that we also have going on, Paul, is there's some issues in the locker room right now that I think are getting a little out of hand. So the Raiders at one point were the laughing stock in the 2000s, right? After their years, being good and going to the Super Bowl and all that, they went through a patch of terribleness, right? They were the black hole in a negative way. And they just recently got their spark just a couple years ago. Carr came in, they started to turn around. Then they had the Carr MVP year where Carr almost was, the people talked about him being an MVP.
Right.
And then he got injured.
Right.
I think that the issue right now is that the players on this team are all so young that they don't want to be the old Raiders. They want to be the Raiders that were good. But they're seeing the team fall into the old Raiders, and it's causing these young kids that don't know how to handle adversity. Because really, other than Marshawn Lynch and a couple other, who's the veteran leaders on there that have been through the adversity, that have been through all that? This team's very young, and we're seeing it with the reports coming out. So there is a report from The Athletic. So Derek Carr playing against the Seahawks, in case you guys don't know, he got hit really hard, driven into the ground, and the cameras caught him making a face. So if you haven't seen the play, pretty much he goes down, he reaches to his arm, which is in a lot of pain at the moment, and he has this face on that I wish you guys could see me. He's like, I don't know. You could say
it looks like he's crying.
Yeah, it does look like he's crying, but at the same time, it looks like maybe he's just really in agonizing pain. Regardless, that's the face he was making. Now, fast forward to, recently in the last couple of days, there's rumors that the team found out he was crying on the field when they saw that video, and that he's losing the team or something. Now, I don't know if this rumor is true, and honestly, if it is, I would be completely insulted by the way the immaturity on the team to even feel that way, right? If he was hurt, he was hurt. If he made a face and he was in pain, then whatever, because we all know that Carr has been through some pain. Like, that's stupid. But the fact that the story's getting out is what bothers me, because even if it's not true, why is this story surfacing? And if if there wasn't issues in the locker room, why would Derek be making the statements he's making on Twitter? So you can tell that even though this story might not be true, it's stirring up real emotion. So just to give you an idea of what I'm saying here, Carr was on Twitter and his brother tried to defend him when they heard about the crying thing and whatever. And he tweeted, hit 16 times in that game, broken pinky finger on the throwing hand, sprained thumb throwing hand, knee sprain MCL grade 2, high ankle sprain grade 3, concussion grade 1. And I'm not going to keep going through this whole list, but he pretty much laid out all of Carr's injuries. And Derek responded in a tweet saying, by the way, it ended saying 2 missed games. That's it. Saying that's all he's missed, right? Obviously he also had the ACL issue or whatnot, but so Derek responded saying, don't even waste your time with this, big bro. On the ground, I yelled, get me up, get me. Then I got to the sideline and yelled again. Not one tear, not one time. There is the truth. People will click on it because it sounds crazy, but stop playing with me. Now, Derek also, a couple hours after that, tweeted this. I'm a Raider. It's not a popular thing to be a Raider right now, but I am, and I love it. I love the struggle of trying to fight back for our city when not a lot of people believe in us. People could try all they want to tear us apart, but it's not happening to the real ones. Paul, I don't know about you, but like I mentioned, even if these things aren't true, there's real emotion coming out because of it, and I think it's a glimpse into what's going on.
Well, I mean, the old clicheing is winning fixes everything, right? With that, losing causes a lot of things, right? When you're not doing well in a season, problems leak out, fights get started. Maybe the defense gets mad at the offense because they didn't score more points, or the offense gets mad at the defense because they gave up too many points, or whatever happened. I mean, you can point to a million different things. Quarterbacks mad at people for whatever mistake they made, or head coaches are blaming players that shouldn't be blamed, or whatever it is. I mean, there's a million things that can go on when you're losing because you're looking for the cause of the losing, right? You don't want to lose anymore. You want to come back up to the top and start winning again. So I think a lot of this is coming out too just because they're not good this year. But they're not good this year because they're starting a new regime. Now, personally, I'm not sure why Jack Del Rio's gone. I mean, they were pretty good under Jack Del Rio. And if Derek Carr doesn't get hurt in that season that you spoke of earlier, then who knows what they could have done in that playoffs. I mean, they were coming in to play a Texans team who had Brock Osweiler at quarterback, right? Their defense that year was so good, the Texans, right? And the Raiders have to come in with Connor Cook at quarterback, a rookie who hadn't even had an NFL start until Derek Carr gets hurt. And now he's playing against one of the league's best defenses. That's not really a fair fight, you know? So who knows what they could have done if Derek Carr stayed there. Maybe they could have made a deep playoff run. Maybe they could have made the Super Bowl. Who knows, right? But they were so fun to watch that year, and they're only a few years removed from that. So I don't know. Either way, Gruden is their guy now. Every time someone new comes in, this is the kind of thing that happens, right? I think we can chalk most of these problems up to that. And I think once the year's over, I think we'll see a lot less of this stuff and probably a lot of players leaving.
5-11 over under for the Raiders.
I'm going to say under.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me ask you this. If Gruden took his new first round pick just to get like a pass rusher, how angry would you be?
Me personally, I wouldn't be angry. They don't have the money. They didn't have the money to pay Khalil Mack. John Gruden stated publicly.
Here, let me say something. If he planned on getting rid of Cooper, they would have.
What, they would have paid him?
No, I'm saying if they knew that they were getting rid of Cooper, so let's say this was in the back of his mind, they would have been able to keep Mack.
I mean, potentially. Cooper is due a lot of money next year. He's not due much this year, but he's due a lot
next year.
Year. But he's not due Khalil Mack money. And I don't think they knew they were going to get rid of Cooper. I think that's something that happened later on. But he's stated publicly like the offer that they were planning to make to to Khalil Mack was nowhere near what he got in Chicago. So he went and got his money. And the Raiders don't have that kind of money right now, right? Maybe when they move to Vegas, which I think is really good for them. But I mean, if you can't pay the guy, you have to move on from him. You have to draft somebody else. You have to get someone else. Now, Nick Bosa from Ohio State, Joey Bosa's little brother, is coming up. He could be a potential target for the Raiders, and they're going to have an early pick, right? And right now, it looks like it's between them, the Cardinals, the Niners, and the Giants.
Yeah, well, we know they're going to have an early pick, and we know that they can have an even earlier pick if they want, and we know they're going to have a second early pick because we know that the Cowboys aren't that good, and we know that they might even have a third pick because the Bears, I don't think, are going to do that great. So, I mean, we're definitely going to see some movement. Oakland fans, here's what I would tell you. Be patient. Chalk this season up and understand that this is not your season, especially with you got to understand your division. Like, as a Seahawks fan, if we were in a different division right now, if we were in the NFC North, NFC East, or NFC South, I would be like, yeah, we're going to win this division. Like, I would have that hope, but I have to understand my surroundings. I have to know that I'm in a division with the Rams. That means I know we're going for wild card. I know we are. So then I have to look at my record that way. So if we lose too many games, I can just automatically just say, okay, the season's over. You know you're in a division with the Chiefs. You know you're in a division with the Chargers. You know you got to see both of them twice, and you're not going to touch the record of the Chiefs. You're probably not going to touch the record of the Chargers. These things must come to your mind, and you got to just chalk it up. But be confident. And like Paul said, I think the Vegas move is the best move for you guys. I think it's going to draw in money. It's going to draw in attention. It's going to draw in players. Players are going to want to come to Vegas. Players are going to want to come. Now, the only downside of Vegas, and I know that wasn't part of the show today, Paul, but I'd be scared of Vegas for certain players. Like, if you have a team in Vegas, you have to run a team like the Patriots. I know that sounds like weird, but you cannot be a free. Now, I trust Gruden to do that because Gruden is very tight. He's very tight ship.
Right.
But you got to have that tight ship in Vegas because you can't have the Manziels and the Gordons in Vegas. You can't have the Eagles in Vegas with all the players with their personalities and the free fun and la.
Well,
you can't have that in Vegas because people are going to get arrested. People are going to get drugged up and drunk and a lot of issues in Vegas.
That's the same thing as Miami. It's the same thing as New Orleans. It's the same thing.
No
as
place
LA.
on this planet is like Vegas. I give New Orleans the closest, but New Orleans also. So New Orleans, the difference between all those places in Vegas is, and all those other places, you can live away. Like Eagles players lived where I lived in South Jersey. They could live away from their place. Vegas, you've been there, I think. I know I've been there several times.
I've been to Vegas.
It's a city in the middle of nothing. You can't leave Vegas and live in the town next door. You can live in Reno, but I mean, it's
pretty far away still.
Yeah, it's pretty far and it's not much different. So you can't. So you're in it. You're in it, and there's no getting away from it. And I just think it's a much different mindset. The plus. It's just Vegas. Like, there's something different about that. But, no. So, I think Gruden will handle that fine. But, guys, it is the Wednesday show. So, before we end this, we do have to talk about Thursday Night Football. Because what would we be doing if we weren't talking about football? Paul, what do we got coming up Thursday?
Thursday night, the Houston Texans take on the Miami Dolphins in Houston. So, this game coming in, we've spoke separately from the show about how the Dolphins haven't really been very good on the road. I think the Texans are trending up and the Dolphins are trending down. And Lamar Miller had a breakout game this week. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is still there. Will Fuller's still there. Deshaun Watson's still the quarterback. Also, two of the top-rated defenders, according to Pro Football Focus, play on the Texans defense. Also, J.J. Watt's not one of them, and he's one of the league leaders in sacks. So the Texans have a lot going for them right now, and they seem to be on the upturn. The Dolphins, I don't know if Tannehill's going to play, if Brock Osweiler plays again. I mean, I feel like with backup quarterbacks, the longer that they have to stay in and play and be the starter, the less likely they are to play at a high level. You know what I mean? Like Fitzpatrick had 3 games where he's the starter and he started to decline already. And so they said, okay, get this guy out, bring Jameis back in. I feel the same way about Osweiler. He had a pretty decent first game. He played okay this past week, not great, and I just don't know that he's going to be able to keep up any kind of like real decent play.
No, I agree with you, man. Now, don't get me wrong. Since Brock has come in, I think the Dolphins are averaging somewhere around 26 points per game. Tannehill had him at 19.8, but it's a completely different team under Brock. Their defense has gotten worse. They're just playing worse. And yeah, no, you're right. On the road, they're also completely different. A completely different team on the road. I think on the road they're like 1-3. Or something like that, but I don't have that number up in front of me. I've got the Houston Texans on this one, guys. They're an all-around better team. I've said it before. I really like this team. They're one of my favorites in the AFC to watch. I find them really fun. And statistically, on paper, it's a no-compete right here. I mean, the offense for the Texans is 10th in the league. The defense is 14th. And the Dolphins are 28th and 22nd in the opposite realm there. But here's the thing, and I mentioned this. The Texans started off terribly, 0-3. They were giving up massive amounts of points. They weren't getting any turnovers. I think, to be exact, 3 takeaways in the first 3 games. Since then, the last 4 games, they've got 10 takeaways. And they're giving up like 6 points less than they were in their first 3 games. And they're 4-0. So they went from 0-3 to 4-0. The defense has stepped up completely. And I just like this team. Now, a couple things I want to point out that I think are major key factors. DeAndre Hopkins is a beast, and I think that he's going to keep being a beast, and that's why they're going to win the game is things like that. DeAndre Hopkins is – so Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins are the only players since 2017 to have 2,000-plus yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. That screams consistency for me. And let's remember, last season he only had his starting quarterback for half the season. You know, he got injured right around this time, I think. It was halfway through the season when it happened, right, Paul?
Something around then. I think it might have been a few weeks down the road, but yeah.
Yeah, so he went half a season with a backup quarterback. So, and this is one guy that no matter who his quarterback
Deshaun
is.
wasn't the original starter either. Deshaun didn't start the season as the starter. I think he started in week 3, maybe was his first game. I don't remember exactly, but I know that I don't remember who they had off the top of my head. Was it Tom Savage, right?
It might have been.
Was the starter?
Yeah, all I know is no matter who the quarterback's been, like if you ask me what wide receiver do you trust the most in the NFL, I would actually go with DeAndre Hopkins over many because here's why. You take away Ben, and we've had this discussion in the past, but you take away Ben and AB does change. Yeah, we haven't seen it, but if you take away Matt Ryan, Julio probably changes. The one thing that we do have proof of, we have documentation of, is DeAndre Hopkins has played with several quarterbacks, and every quarterback he's played for, he's put numbers up. Like the guy is a monster. He gets the contested catches. He's a monster. Now on the other side of the ball, the reason why I think they're going to win defensively is right now J.J. Watt and Clowney are having a killer year. They have 11.5 or 11.5 sacks this season. I think the only people that are better than them right now as a tandem is Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. And I think they've got, I've got it written down, 14 sacks. So defense-wise, offense-wise, I think they're going to handle these Dolphins with ease. Now, 2 things I want to mention that before I finish it up, though. The Texans are the second team in NFL history to lose their first 3 games and end up as the number 1 team in their division after 7. The 2011 Chiefs did that. I think that's remarkable. I think they're going to win this division. I think it is their division. I don't think they're going to do much in the playoffs this year because I still think they've got some struggles, and I don't like their coaching. I'll be honest. I don't like Billy. But I think they're going to win their division. But the thing that scares me, and I don't know how you feel about this, Paul, but the first thing I said this season was I hope Watson's right after his injury. I really hope the injury doesn't affect him mentally or physically. And he started slow. He's picked up speed. But then I found out when I was doing my research for this game, Deshaun Watson has been sacked 26 times this season and taken 68 hits. Both of those stats are the worst in the NFL. Watson has 16 more QB hits than the next closest player, which is Matt Ryan. That scares me because he's coming off of an injury. He's got, that already over his shoulder. Plus, the type of quarterback he is, he's prone for injury. So I don't like that. I think that the Texans need to get him protection. And if they can't do that before the trade deadline, which is only a week from now, they need to have that running back in there to chip block. They need to have him moving, have him in the shotgun, have him doing different play, like scheme him the protection if you have to, but stop letting him get hit because you do not want to see, because last year it was a non-contact injury that caused it. So clearly the guy's not, he got some little bit of fragileness to him. Whenever I see non-contact injuries, I'm like, that's a fragile body. You got to be careful. But no, seriously, that's what scares me. But in this game, I've got the Texans picked. I like them. I think they're going to win their division. And if you're picking your games, make sure you pick the Texans.
Right. And just to the point of Texans trending up, like you said, they lost their first 3 games and they're leading the division. They're on a 4-game win streak and they're 4-1 in their last 5, obviously. Dolphins are 2-3 in their last 5. And they kind of got lucky, I'll say, against the Bears. Yeah,
they got really lucky.
But either way, like we both said now, I'm way more confident in the Texans than the Dolphins going into this game.
Plus the way Thursday Night Football has been since it started this year is high-scoring offenses having fun and showing out. And we've noticed that. Last week, we saw it with the Eagles. They did their thing. And we've seen it even when go back to Jets and Browns, teams that aren't normally like the Browns aren't putting up a lot of points every week. They've had some big scoring games. They have, but that game was a high offensive and fun, and these games have been fun. So I think that the Texans are
don't
going to come
forget the
out.
Rams Vikings too. It was 38-31. That was a high scoring game.
Yeah, one of the best games this season. So I see it being another great game for the Texans. I don't know about the Dolphins. I'll be honest, I don't know. I really don't know what we'll see. So I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out to be a blowout. I really wouldn't be surprised. So we shall see. But with all that, I've got nothing. You got anything?
I got nothing. Come back and see us or listen to us, I guess. Come back and listen to us on Friday for the rest of our weekly picks. Yeah,
that's about it. This was our Wednesday show. We got a lot of stuff packed into this hour and 15 minutes or whatever it's going to end up being. We hope it was fruitful for you. We hope it was informative, and we hope that you really enjoyed it. We will see you guys back here Friday, same time, same place. We're going to be doing our game picks. We'll also be doing our Thursday Night Football recap where we're talking about what happens tomorrow with the Texans and the Dolphins. And then we'll go into Sunday and have fun with some Week 8 football. Until then, we'll see you guys later. I'm Mike Pagano. That's Paul Helmers. This is MVP News.
MVP News is brought to you by Infinity Action Sports. Infinity Action Sports is a veteran-owned and operated custom sporting goods shop for quality sports uniforms, apparel, and equipment. They provide top-of-the-line products for individuals and teams, youth and adult. Head over to infinityactionsports.com and browse their inventory of jerseys, hoodies, gloves, and bats. Or use the custom tab to create the perfect individualized uniform for your team or event. Make sure to enter promo code MVP at checkout for 10% off, specially marked sale items excluded. Infinity Action Sports is MVP's only trusted source for sports apparel. Click on the link in the description to shop.